Hello and welcome back to An Old Man Watches, and today I will be talking about the famed 1964 spaghetti western A Fistful of Dollars. And in this movie, an unnamed drifter comes into a miserable little town which is divided between and under the thumb of two rival crime families. The drifter and his arrival quickly draws the attention of four local thugs who aim to show the newcomer his place. Their attempt to do so is a mistake that they do not live to regret. Having made a name for himself by gunning down four men in under a minute, the stranger quickly finds himself the subject of eager recruitment pitches from both local mobs, who see him as a chance to break the deadlock between them. While he's quick to entertain these offers, he's clearly playing his own game as he does so, frequently changing his apparent allegiance while engineering ever fiercer clashes between the rivals. Now, of course, trying to manipulate two heavily armed gangs of amoral killers is not a safe game to play. And can even a man as deadly as this stranger survive the whirlwind of violence he's about to unleash? So, when it came out, A Fistful of Dollars had a very negative initial critical reception, but it was a significant international hit. It ultimately brought in a global box office of close to 100 times its modest $200,000 budget, and has become sort of renowned as one of the great westerns. It was Clint Eastwood's first starring role in a feature film. It immediately made him a major star in Italy. Fame in his native America, United States, took a little while longer, as the film and its sequels had their US release delayed until 1967 due to fears of legal action. You see, the plot of this film is extremely similar to that of Akira Kurosawa's 1961 film Yojimbo, which was itself a loose adaptation of a Dashiell Hammett novel. It was only after Kurosawa and Toho Company, as his producer's case was resolved with an out-of-court settlement, that these movies, A Fistful of Dollars and its two sequels, were seen in the US and turned Eastwood into a global star. Now, in my opinion, both this film and Eastwood deserved their success. So let's talk about why this movie works as well as it does. So with this film, director Sergio Leone consciously set out to reinvent the Western genre. In his opinion, the American Westerns of the mid to late 50s had become stagnant, overly preachy, and implausible. You didn't believe the characters. They were too black and white, too cardboard cutout. He knew that Italian audiences laughed at the stock conventions of American Westerns and at the pastiche work that Italian directors did working in the genre as well. And so Leone set out to create a new kind of Western, one where the good guys and bad guys couldn't be told apart by the colours of their hats, or even necessarily, to some extent, by their behaviour. A Fistful of Dollars was also the first film to exhibit Leone's distinctive style of visual direction. Now, one of the major influences on Leone was John Ford's cinematic landscaping, which is apt for making a Western, giving Ford's work on iconic films of that genre, such as Stagecoach and The Searchers. The other major influence was the Japanese method of direction, also apt, given the debt that the script of this film owes to Yojimbo. Leone uses a lot of extreme close-ups in the film, especially in intense situations, bringing the camera in tight to focus on a character's face or eyes. He also uses a lot of low-angled shots, causing characters to loom up over the camera. And iconoclastically for the time, he also made the choice to film one-on-one gunfights over the shoulder of Eastwood's character, in what today's computer games might call third-person shooter style. The result is impactful, memorable visual drama. And I think it's important to call out that last word. This is not a grounded, quote-unquote, realistic film. It's deliberately operatic in its style and scope. It is exaggerated and enlarged. Now, in my opinion, in later films of this trilogy, Leone would go overboard with some of the techniques that he pioneered here, drawing scenes out unnecessarily and making his films a bit bloated. But in this first offering, I think he got them exactly right. The film's music was written by Ennio Morricone, who broke away from then standard conventions of the Western genre. Commonly, such films had featured a lot of vocals and richly layered musical compositions. Morricone's score is instead often sparse and lean. The title music features calm whistling over occasional whip cracks and gunshots. Eastwood's character gets his own theme, which is used only for him as well, which is a nice touch. Morricone is also not afraid to just be silent. At various points within the film, music is intentionally left out to put the focus entirely on the visuals. When your whole job is to write music, choosing not to takes some courage and vision. The best example of this is probably the scene in which one of the two gangs finally gets the upper hand and murders almost the entire other gang as they try to flee a burning building. The only sounds are the crackle of the flames, the screams of the victims, and the gunshots and laughter of the triumphant faction. It's highly effective at being a disturbing and unsettling scene, and underlining how wicked this gang is, even though the people they're killing were every bit as unpleasant. Morricone's compositions in the later films of this series are perhaps more iconic and recognisable, but I think he got off to an excellent start here. Now, while Morricone has clearly understood that sometimes less is more, Eastwood seems to have based his entire performance on the concept. The drifter never raises his voice, he never snarls, he never scrambles. The only time we see him move with speed is his hands as he draws his guns. Otherwise, he moves only as much as he must and with as little haste as possible. Even his face remains almost entirely still. Now, this kind of really hugely minimalist performance could have fallen flat, but Eastwood's charisma makes it work to an almost triumphant extent, which is ironic given that he wasn't the first choice for the role. In fact, he wasn't really one of the top choices at all. He only just kind of made it into the top 10. Henry Fonda was the first choice, but was too expensive. And 8 other actors turned down the part, including Charles Bronson. The last of the 8 was American actor Richard Harrison, who suggested Eastwood for the role. The rest, of course, is history. Harrison reportedly later joked that his recommendation was his greatest service to cinema, and he may have a point. It was definitely a great service to Clint Eastwood's career. At the end of the day, Fistful of Dollars is an excellent film, and to my mind, the best Western that either Leone or Eastwood ever made. Both made other Westerns that were good, and some that were not so good, but I don't think they made quite anything that matched up to this one. Next time, The Sky Has Fallen, an independent zombie film from 2009, which boasts as a major selling point that it relies entirely on practical effects rather than CGI. But that's next time. Until then, thanks for watching this video, and I hope you enjoyed it.